I'm sure you've heard of the economic phrase debt exchange because it's one of the most frequently used phrases in the recent past. And within these few minutes, I'm going to take time to explain what this means. I'll start with how we got here and why people are talking about debt exchange. Many politicians, politicians and government functionaries, as well as experts, have mentioned this term as a means of the government will employ to help get the country out of the current economic mess, which they say has been caused by the debt overhang in the country. So first of all, how did the government land in this trouble? The government, mainly especially, has borrowed so much through bonds, its issues, through financial intermediaries like banks. And first, before we move on, let's look at what a bond is. A bond is a promise. A government bond is a promise by the government to give an ordinary Ghanaian a certain amount of money, which we term interest, if the Ghanaian borrows the government some amount of money after a particular duration. So the government has used this bond to borrow money from Ghanaians and even in international market, and it has gotten to a point that repaying this amount of money is very difficult because of the government's revenue mobilization issues. Let's move to what debt exchange means. So with the bond, there's an interest, the profit that the government has promised you, and there's your principal, the money you invested, and there's a time that the government is supposed to give you back your principal and the interest you are to get from loaning them the money. So now what the government is trying to do is that they are trying to change the terms of the agreement they had with you when you borrowed them the money through the bond you bought from them. So the government, for example, if you bought a bill that was supposed to mature in 2023, now the government is saying that he is offering you 4 new bills, 4 new bonds, one that will mature from 2027, 2020. These maturity dates are far away. So in effect, what the government is doing is that the deal that it had with you initially is being swapped for another deal, hence the term debt exchange. So now, why are people kicking against this move? Is it that they are going to lose the money they invested or their interest or principal? So basically, what the government is proposing is that if you are to get your investment benefit, let's say at the end of this year, you are going to get it at a different year. So people are arguing that if they are to get a set amount of money in 2023, and that money will be given them in 2027, it means the money is going to lose value. In economic terms, we have what we call the time value of money, which means that what you can use the money for today can't be used for that same particular thing in another year. For example, if you want to buy a house that costs 100,000 Ghana cedis in 2023, that same house will not go for 100,000 Ghana cedis in 2027. So this is one of the reasons why people are kicking against this move. Again, people are kicking against this move because the interest that people get from bond are what they use to live, and they survive on it. So we have pensioners and other people who have invested all their money in bonds and they live on this interest. So if the government varies the payment of this interest, this means that they'll find life difficult. They will not be able to take care of their families and their relations. And another reason why people are kicking against this move is that they're saying that the government is the one who got us in this mess, and rather than contributing to finding a solution to it, it's putting the burden on only ordinary Ghanaians. The initial plan of the government was that individual bondholders will not be affected. Other entities like banks, investment institutions were the ones who were going to be affected. Even there was even mention of pension funds, which was removed after strong opposition by labor groups. Now, and the government, after removing the pension fund, rather is now replacing it with individual bonds, which many say was forced on them by the International Monetary Fund as part of the bailout the government is seeking. One thing is that the debt exchange program is a voluntary program. You can choose to join in or not, but most people are afraid that you get to a point that the government will force it on every person who holds a government bond. That's why people are kicking against this move. But if you choose to opt out or choose not to partake, there might be consequences, even though the government has not given any penalty on those who do not join into the program, which it has the domestic debt exchange program. If for instance everybody kick against the move and the government does not get the needed funds for what it needs, it will happen that you might be going for your investment at the end of the maturity period, and you go and the government will not have money to give you. Yes, and the only option you have is to either sue the government, which will even take longer days for you to get your money back. Another option is that you get your investment, but it will be slashed. You might lose your interest totally, and even there's a possibility of you losing part of your principal, as we've seen being done with some private bonds by banks like Data Bank.